Few days ago, I think Citibank published a report that they see the stablecoin circulation will reach $10 trillion plus. Today, we are about $200 billion in stablecoin circulation, and I'm so happy that USDC launched on XDC at the right time, backed by the Genius Act, backed by the regulations, and I think a large share of that 10 trillion will come to XDC, and I'm very sure of.
Welcome back to another XDC MENA Podcast, where we talk about the future of blockchain and technology. I am Rebecca, your host. As always, nothing in this video is financial or investment advice. This is purely for ecosystem updates and informational purposes only. All right, so a lot of you requested to hear from the founders themselves, and we started delivering on that with our last podcast with Mr. Ritesh. Today's special 20th episode, I'm super honored to have Mr. Atul Khekade, XDC's co-founder. He is a true architect of innovation and pioneer dedicated to bridging real-world finance and blockchain, making XDC the next generation platform for digital payments and global settlements. Let's get started. Mr. Atul, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you for that great introduction. It kind of humbles me. Secondly, thank you for inviting me for your webinar. I've been seeing you doing these webinars with a lot of other people. Maybe I thought one day I will get a chance myself, and today is the day. So, yes, thank you for that introduction. It's amazing. The journey has been amazing. We are into 9th year of XDC network now, building even strongly than ever. And every day you wake up and you feel like, wow, there's so much more. There's so much more. And you want to tell everyone about it. And there's nothing much better than having this platform here with you.
And of course, thank you for saying yes and being part of the podcast. As mentioned, super honored. And yes, first of all, congratulations on the 9 years. And massive congratulations for having Circle on board and the XDC. I think it's a huge milestone, not just for the network, but for the ecosystem and community also. So yes, since we already have USDC and XDC, how will that improve the payments and global trade? And also, what advantages users and institutions can see right away?
Yes, I mean, I can't tell you how excited I am about USDC going live on XDC. Because firstly, if you see, it's like having your US dollar bank account on XDC. And it's so easy to connect for any financial institutions or corporate world. All they have to do is set up like a XDC master node or set up a XDC node, connect to the APIs, set up their own key devices, and all this can happen within like matter of just a day, and they can have their US dollar bank account on the XDC network as a smart contract. Compare that to having a US Nostro account and connecting to the SWIFT system to even be able to work with other banks and financial institutions or corporate. I mean, imagine that takes millions of dollars of investment. It takes months and years to set up versus on XDC having your US dollar bank account, which you can go live with it right now. I think that's pretty amazing. For me, I'm very excited. And if you go out in the world to do transactions, what do you do first, right? As an individual or anyone else, a corporate or even a government, you open a bank account. That's the first thing. You open a bank account, get your card. That's all. That's what you're getting now. USDC on XDC is like your bank account. So it's open for the entire world. You can already see my excitement. I couldn't have been much happier about it. It's going to change a lot of things for XDC, make it stronger, better, take XDC to the top. I'm very sure of that.
Great. It's really amazing that USDC is already bringing real and practical value into the network. And I think it's not even a month, but there's already almost $9 million minted on the XDC. So that leads me to a bigger picture because XDC has always been focused in bridging real world finance and Web3. And you've done this yourself before at Monetago when you created a permission blockchain network for a consortium of Asian banks. So now that we have USDC and XDC, how did this next step strengthen the connection between banks and decentralized payment rails?
Yes. Look, I mean, payments is a large part of how the world operates. Today, trillions of dollars of value is getting exchanged around the world, and that is settled largely on the SWIFT system, largely by the banking system. And now all the systems have been set up since last 50 years, right? There was no true innovation in that space. Blockchain is really the true innovation in the space, in the sense that your transaction can settle within seconds. You send it from one party to another party, and it has the capability to not just to settle the transactions, but even to go through the compliances that takes otherwise banks so much time to go through. So what does that do as a first step? First is you're not just making a payment, but then all these capital markets, all trade finance, all real world asset transactions, they can be settled using USDC on XDC. Something that we were waiting for so many years, and that is the whole significance of why it's going to be very big and why it was so important step for XDC.
I like how you frame that. And obviously, XDC has its unique role in bridging those two worlds. And I love how it's taking that mission very seriously. So, yeah, on that note, a lot of blockchains are trying to attract stablecoin activity. So, what does XDC offer as a unique advantage that sets it apart for global payments?
That's a very good question. I get asked that question a lot. That look, there are so many layer one infrastructure. Circle themselves have launched something. Lot of layer one that you see every day. It's like saying, oh, there are a lot of people are launching a lot of Facebooks every day. Is that even possible? I'll tell you why. XDC since 2017 was on the transitory mainnet, right? Today it's more than 7 years of the main network, layer 1 infrastructure, largely running 24/7 uninterrupted, right? How many blockchains or layer ones do you see? A lot of them are like, oh, 3 months old, 6 months old, 1 year old. They have not seen the kind of things that we have. They've not gone through the times that we have. They have not shown perseverance, resilience, and I give it to our community for standing us, with that. I think that's been our greatest strength. So whoever thinks about having many layer ones out there trying to attract stable coin, look at a sheer point of longevity. XGC has been there. It will complete a decade next year of launch. How many projects do you see? And that is something that's not going to change. If you see $1 trillion brand out there, what do you see? It's the sheer longevity of it. And they've been around for so long that they know everything. They've seen everything. They expect what is going to happen, and this is something that sets XDC apart. So why USDC is a great partner for us in stablecoin space as a layer 1 infrastructure, our strength of just being around for so long, our community backing us for so long, they've been there for so long. I think that differentiates XDC network as the infrastructure for USDC itself that anyone would prefer to work with, especially financial institutions, corporates, even governments that look at large track record. How long have you been there? Simple question.
Appreciate on the part of longevity, and I know that the viewers will agree to that. And yes, it's been a solid 9 years for us. Do you want to share more about the architecture of the network? What's the advantages on that?
So I think the way we were set up at that time, we initially looked at Ethereum, and we were like, look, this network is not going to be good enough for the way it operates for real world transactions. So if you look at the consensus, which is very original for the XDC network, which has been there for so long, it was a true innovation from us. The network processes 2,000 transactions per second. There's our official statement. People have benchmarked it to much higher numbers. If you combine like a zero knowledge layer 2 solutions, then you can do a lot more. You can do hundreds of thousands of that even, because then you're able to do much larger blocks of transactions. So transaction throughput wise, I think it's a unique architecture, which is even now when people are launching other layer 1 or suboptimal finality and all that, sub-second finality, XDC is still, you can experience it. When you do a transaction, look at the experience. And I ask this simple question: how many people even pay with Bitcoin or access Bitcoin on day-to-day basis? They don't. They more like speculated. Or on XDC you can have that experience of doing that. That is the one part about experience. Second is on the institutional level in the banking network, the part about transaction finality is something that we've addressed uh, very as a priority. So you look at about 6 seconds of transaction finality on the XDC network. So it's like 3 blocks is the when the transaction is final, right? So XDC has 2 second block time, right? So the transaction is confirm itself in 2 seconds and it is final in 6 seconds. I don't think that is something that someone has done for so long. Uh, these are some of the important aspects architecturally. Other part is how easy it is to run the XDC master nodes, to set one up, add your node, sync up with it, add 10 million XDC into your own wallet. That's your node as your participants. No one else controls it. It's you. You can do it through regulated custodians. Anyone regulated can set up their own master nodes and participate in the network. So we made the infrastructure for the financial institutions, uh, anyone that wants to transact with the real world payments and transactions, to be able to connect to the network in such a simple way that it still is one of the best networks to build on, and it will be.
Exactly. So longevity plus architecture, it's a perfect combination, right? So XDC isn't just another blockchain, but it's one that is built where payments is on mind when you have obviously created the network 9 years back then. So yeah, stablecoin is becoming a critical backbone for digital finance, right? So where do you see stablecoin industry evolve in the next few years, and where do you position XDC into that narrative?
Yes, just about few days ago, I think Citibank published a report that they see the stable coin circulation will reach $10 trillion plus. Today we are about $200 billion in stablecoin circulation, and I'm so happy that USDC launched on XDC at the right time, backed by the Genius Act, backed by the regulations and the law structure. So, firstly, I think a large share of that 10 trillion will come to XDC. That I'm very sure of. Uh, because the way other stable coins and these large values gets transferred today, they still don't have like a proper official rails. Still don't have official bank partners. Banks still don't have the compliance built around stablecoin infrastructure. ISO 20022, which is one of the key developments that has happened in payment space, that your transaction has to be um, uh, supplied with a compliant ISO 20022 message. That happens right now on XDC network. So as main financial institutions start coming to XDC, as there's more regulation around it, all these factors are going to matter, because that 10 trillion is going to need a lot of compliance. It's going to need a lot of experience. It's need a lot of bankability and longevity. All these factors together, I think XDC will take a large market share in that 10 trillion that city report has predicted that it will go in the next few years.
Amazing. And that's a very solid outlook, or perspective. And yeah, I think this gives our viewers a very good sense or a picture of where stablecoin is heading and how XDC can capture those millions of market or trillion market. So yeah, of course, with that kind of development and progress, regulation becomes the key piece of the puzzle. I know you've touched regulations a while ago, but I want to make sure that how does XDC make sure that its stablecoin and payment infrastructure is future proof and regulatory ready?
Very good question. I think choosing the right partners. So Circle, USDC, yes, everyone knows what they are. Uh, I think it is a large part of our community vets through the partners, does a lot of time in vetting through the partners because the community also has gone through experiences. Uh, Merely licenses is not something that uh, we we look at. We look at whether your KYC AML is right, whether your standards for funds reporting is right. Because in the end, a lot of these platforms are using not their own funds; they're using customer funds, right? So only having a license does not mean that you'll not mess up. Uh, I think through the experiences that we've gone through, our community has a very strong voice in choosing the right partners that will work in every region with compliance, will have the fund reporting structures, uh, managing customer funds. Look, it's a journey. I can't tell you that something may not happen, but I think at least this is what regulators are looking at. They don't want uh, any customers to suffer. And we've had our experiences with that. So I think it's not just the licenses and the KYC ML that typically regulators look at. We'll go from now on step further to make sure the standards for managing funds, managing your keys, your smart contract standards that you're implementing to work with others are also maintained at a level where you are uh, basically uh, a credible player to work with XDC.
Yeah, that's a very great perspective, and that's a very perfect way to balance the innovation or technology with compliance. And obviously, as you mentioned, choosing the right partners, such as USDC, is very critical at this point. So, yeah, before we wrap up the podcast, Mr. Atul, any final thoughts you want to share to our viewers?
Uh, Very interesting. Look, I think I couldn't have been more excited with uh, USDC launching on XDC. There are other stablecoins which are obviously looking to deploy on XDC, and we are very upbeat about that. I think um, for a large part, we did not have a store of value, like a stable store of value, a US dollar backed store of value on XDC network. So that was in a way draining the value out of the chain into other ecosystem. So whatever effort community was putting together as an effort, there was some leakage in terms of value going outside the chain. Now that will stop. Now the value will be stored back on the chain. So whether people sell XDC, load their fiat balances, that USDC is going to be there on the chain, and naturally it's going to find a way inside the chain itself to, whether it's like DeFi protocols, whether it's traditional finance, whether it's real world asset tokenization, whether it's payments from one place to another, all that uh, money, all that funds, all that tokens are going to be within the XDC ecosystem. So first thing that's going to do is not drain the value on XDC. So it will make sure that the value is constantly growing. It's like building, uh, constructing a tower brick by brick, right? So your bricks are constantly being put in place to end up uh, higher and higher. So uh, that is something that will be very important. Secondly, if you looked at whether in the 1970s how dollar to the US dollar economy was built, then when the Bitcoin was invented, the smart people did the same thing. They did with US dollar tether to what Bitcoin was, for dollar to the gold. So they used that value to make sure that the value within the Bitcoin ecosystem was so strongly dependent on Bitcoin. So created a whole economy around it. And I think that analogy is going to apply now that USDC is there on the chain, XDC and USDC working parallelly. The value is going to be between them. This is going to increase the lend borrow markets, the DeFi protocols, the credit markets, all that will grow on the chain, which was all there. The efforts were put at it, but it was not happening. So I just want to tell community that look, the timing couldn't have been better. We all have to come together stronger, um, put our best foot forward. The timing couldn't have been right. All of us have uh, put so many efforts for last so many years. We have seen so many experiences together. Now it is the time to go for it. Now is the time to be successful. Now is the time to be on the top. So let's give it all. Let's be together. Let's give it all. And I couldn't have been more excited. And everyone should be excited about it as well.
Yeah, perfect. So it's very reassuring to know that the value stays in the network and it grows within our network.
Yeah.
Perfect. So, Mr. Atul, thank you so much for being part of the podcast. Thank you for sharing the insights of your insights and XDC's vision to stablecoins and global payments. And I think clearly Circle's being part of the XDC is just the beginning. And obviously, with what you've shared, XDC's future looks stronger than ever.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. Thank you for great questions. It was a great session together. I really loved talking, and I hope your viewers will be taking a lot of value from it. And if there's anything more that I can do in the future, I am ready for it.
Exactly. Thank you again. So, yes, to our viewers out there, hopefully you enjoyed the session, took something valuable out of it. And yes, if you want to know more about XDC Network, please go to zinfin.org or follow our social medias. If you have any question, you can post this by signing up to xdc.dev. So keep learning, keep exploring. I'll see you on the next episode.